Welcome to Lista. When we think of history, we think of great men and great women. We think of generals, queens, and inventors making world-altering decisions in marble halls. But history isn't always written by the people in charge. Sometimes, it's written by the things that live under our floorboards, graze in our fields, or poop on our statues. It's the list of times animals unexpectedly changed history. Today, we're looking at the times animals didn't just participate in history, they completely rewrote it. From feathered war heroes to a cow with a serious grudge against urban planning, here are the times animals unexpectedly changed the world. First up, let's talk about a bird with more medals than your grandfather, Cher Amy. In October 1918, during World War I, things were going very badly for the Lost Battalion. 500 men of the U.S. 77th Division were trapped behind enemy lines in the Argonne Forest. They were surrounded by German forces. They were out of food, and to make matters worse, they were being hit by friendly fire from their own artillery who didn't know they were there. The commander, Charles Whittlesey, sent out 2 pigeons with messages. Both were shot down immediately. He had one bird left. Cher Amy Whittlesey tied a note to her leg that essentially said, "For the love of God, stop shooting at us." As Cher Amy took off, the Germans opened fire. A bullet clipped her breast. She was blinded in one eye, and one of her legs was hanging by a single tendon. Did she quit? No. Cher Amy flew 25 miles in 25 minutes. She delivered the message, the shells stopped, and 194 men were saved because a pigeon refused to clock out. She was awarded the Croix de Guerre and became a national hero. She's currently stuffed and on display at the Smithsonian, which is a bit of a weird way to say thank you. But hey, she earned it. Next, we move to a moment where a simple beast of burden almost ended one of history's most famous careers before it truly began. This is the donkey cart incident of 1800. Napoleon Bonaparte was on his way to the opera in Paris. His enemies, a group of royalists, had a plan. They parked a donkey cart on the Rue Saint-Nicaise, loaded with a massive barrel of gunpowder and shrapnel, history's first major car bomb. Though technically a donkey cart bomb. The plan was perfect, except for one thing: the donkey. The conspirators needed the cart to stay in a very specific spot to catch Napoleon's carriage. But the donkey, being a donkey, was stubborn. It didn't want to stand still. While the assassins were fumbling with the fuse and trying to keep the animal calm, Napoleon's carriage driver, who was reportedly a bit drunk and driving faster than usual, whizzed past the cart. The bomb went off seconds later. It leveled buildings and killed dozens of people, but Napoleon escaped with nothing but a rattled carriage. If that donkey had moved 6 inches to the left, or if it had stayed perfectly still, the Napoleonic Wars might never have happened, and the map of Europe would look like a completely different puzzle today. Now, let's talk about the original heavy armor. We know elephants were used in ancient warfare, but one particular elephant arguably ended a war by being a bit too good at his job. In 272 BC, Pyrrhus of Epirus, the guy who gave us the term Pyrrhic victory, was trying to take the city of Argos. He snuck his army in at night, but his war elephants couldn't fit through the gates with their towers on. Chaos ensued. In the middle of the street fight, a young Argive soldier wounded a small elephant. Hearing the baby elephant's cries of distress, its mother, a massive war elephant, went absolutely berserk. She didn't care about the Greeks, the Romans, or the strategy. She just wanted her kid. She charged through the narrow streets, trampling her own allies, knocking over buildings, and creating such a bottleneck of carnage that Pyrrhus couldn't retreat or advance. In the confusion, Pyrrhus was hit by a roof tile thrown by an old woman and killed. The war ended right there. The lesson: never get between a mother and her child, especially if the mother weighs 6 tons and has tusks. If you enjoy living in a city that doesn't smell like a literal dumpster fire, you can thank the rats. Well, indirectly. For centuries, humans and rats lived in a gross, symbiotic relationship. But in the mid-19th century, the rats in London and Paris became a bit too bold. They weren't just in the walls, they were the masters of the street. This, combined with a few Black Death scares and the general stench of open sewers, finally forced the hands of the elite. In London, the Great Stink of 1858, fueled by waste that rats thrived in, became so bad that Parliament couldn't meet because the smell from the Thames was making them vomit. They realized that if they didn't fix the sewage, the rats and the cholera would finish what the Vikings started. This led to the construction of massive modern sewer systems and the birth of urban reform. We literally redesigned the modern city with paved streets, underground pipes, and zoning laws specifically to keep the rats out and the smells down. Our entire concept of public health was basically a surrender document signed in the war against rodents. We've all heard this story. In 1871, Mrs. O'Leary was milking her cow. The cow got cranky, kicked over a lantern, and burned Chicago to the ground. Now, historians generally agree that Mrs. O'Leary was framed. It was likely a neighbor or a stray spark. But the legend of the cow persisted for a reason. That fire destroyed over 17,000 buildings and left 100,000 people homeless. But the cow's fire did something unexpected. It turned Chicago into a laboratory for modern architecture. Because the city was a blank slate of ash, architects flocked there to try something new. Steel frame buildings, this gave birth to the skyscraper. The fire also forced the creation of the first real fire safety codes in America. Before the cow kicked the lantern, cities were mostly made of wood and hope. After the fire, we got fire hydrants, professional fire departments, and the Great Chicago Fire became the blueprint for how every modern city is built today. One disgruntled bovine, fictional or not, forced humanity to stop building cities out of kindling. Finally, we have the goat that founded a dynasty. Not a political dynasty, but a cultural one that rules your life every morning at 7 a.m. According to legend, in 9th century Ethiopia, a goat herder named Kaldi noticed his goats were acting weird. They weren't sleeping, they were dancing. They had more energy than a toddler on a sugar rush. Kaldi tracked them down and saw they were eating red berries from a certain bush. He tried some, felt the buzz, and brought them to a local monastery. The monks, thinking they were the devil's fruit, threw them into a fire. The aroma was so intoxicating that they raked the beans out of the ashes, ground them up, and dissolved them in hot water. The result? Coffee. Coffee fueled the Islamic Golden Age, the Enlightenment in Europe, and basically every industrial revolution since. It created the coffeehouse culture where people like Newton and Voltaire sat around caffeinated enough to invent calculus and democracy. Without those dancing goats, we'd probably still be drinking weak ale for breakfast and napping through history. History isn't just a human story, it's a story of pigeons delivering mail, donkeys ruining assassinations, and goats getting high on berries. We like to think we're in control, but sometimes, the course of civilization is decided by a creature that doesn't even know what a civilization is. If you enjoyed this look at the animal side of history, make sure to hit that like button, and subscribe to list of 4 more deep dives into the weird corners of our past. Which animal do you think had the biggest impact? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, next time you see a pigeon, show some respect. It might be a veteran. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next list.